everybody. Welcome back to the Show. I'm Aaron, joined as always by my partner in podcasting crime, my cousin Landon. How you doing?
Good day. Make it so. I'm doing
Make
great.
it so.
I'm excited about our
Engage.
talk today.
And what are we talking about?
We're talking about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1.
That's right. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever we drop our latest content. As Landon just said, we are boldly going where this show has never gone before. We're heading into the next generation. We're going to talk about the beginnings of what became probably the most successful and most popular Star Trek series that there has been to date. I don't know the actual statistics on that or what fandom would actually say, but I mean it's my favorite. So, Landon, were you aware of the Next Generation when it originally aired? I mean, I know we were both alive for it.
We were 6, weren't we?
Well,
I
I
think
was 7.
actually, yes, right. I think that I learned about Star Trek The Next Generation from you. I feel like I learned it from you. Now we used to, but I then we started watching it in my home, like when it come on WDBJ7. Was that when it came on? Like
I
CBS?
can't remember. I know it was syndicated. It came on one of those local channels.
Yeah. So, but like, I think you were into it, and then I started watching it, but I didn't start watching it at season 1. I know that. I started watching it probably, I want to say season 2 or 3, maybe. I had to have been, or maybe it was later than that, because how many seasons? It had 7 seasons.
7
It was
seasons,
probably
yeah.
right in the middle of it, because I think I was around 11, 10 or 11, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but I remember loving it. One of the reasons I loved it is because of Geordie. Reading Rainbow was one of my favorite things when I was growing up to watch. And so seeing LeVar Burton be Geordie, and it was like, and there was a certain episode of Reading Rainbow where he actually put on the visor like on the show. I don't know if you remember that, but
Yeah. Yeah, there's
that
an
was
episode of
so.
Reading Rainbow where he like took the audience on a tour of the Next Generation set, and we got to see all of the behind the scenes stuff. It was really great.
That was one of the coolest things. And I mean, around that time, of course, we had, when did Undiscovered Country come out?
92, I think.
Okay, so 92. So I feel like I started watching this, and then Undiscovered Country came out. And of course, I'd watched all the other little videos like Voyage Home and all those and Con, and they were on TV. But this was this was the right time for me to get involved in this. All of my fandom for Star Trek, I have to admit, really comes from this show. And then it expanded me out to liking the original and the movies even more, and then from there. But it is this show that got me, and specifically Patrick Stewart more than anybody else.
Right. All right, so let's head back to 1987. That's when the show first began. We're gonna start with before we get into the season itself. We're gonna want to talk a little bit about why Star Trek came back to TV in the first place. The original series ended back in 1969, which we've talked about previously on the podcast. And Star Trek found new life in syndication. The fan base grew so much that we got an animated series and then the movies, which again we've talked about extensively here on the podcast. But Gene Roddenberry, the creator, always wanted to come back to TV. Uh, do you know that it took nearly 20 years to make this happen?
I
20.
did not know that it was 20 years. Now, and he helped write this, didn't he? He
Oh
was
yeah.
involved in writing The Next Generation, at least for a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah. He was heavily involved up until his passing, really.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. He so I'm trying to think. Of course, there were a lot of behind the scenes issues with the way that he saw that, you know, that the Federation should be, that the way the future should be, as opposed to the way a lot of the writers behind the scenes would have should have or wanted things to be.
Yeah.
Um, Roddenberry was notorious for wanting this utopian future where there was no conflict. And I don't know about you, but when I write a story, it's hard to make it compelling if there's no conflict
Yeah,
of some kind.
right,
Whether that be something internal amongst your crew or with some, external force that is
right,
acting upon your crew. There's got to be some kind of conflict. I don't know how he expected stories to be told or be entertaining without introducing something into the mix that would cause conflict.
right, right.
It confuses me.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Well, and I definitely think he would feel differently about where things are now with the show, but I could see how in the next generation, first of all, it is wrought with conflict from the get-go. Like
Oh
even
yeah.
Picard's character coming on in the first season is, I mean, he is very strict and he is now dealing with a crew that wants to be personalized. I mean, you've got this number one who kind of is his own. He feels like he should be in charge, really. I mean, you've got an empath or a mind reader, um, who definitely is all about helping people work out their emotions. You have this obligation between him and Beverly Crusher now dealing with Wesley. I mean, the show, it has conflict, you
Oh
know?
yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
it makes it, I mean, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So you already mentioned that Patrick Stewart was kind of your driving force for getting you involved in this
Yeah.
whole Star Trek universe. Did you know that Roddenberry initially wanted a French actor to play Picard, which would
Really?
make sense. He is, a French character.
Yeah.
Uh,
Jean-Luc Picard,
but when he saw Stewart's audition, he changed his mind.
who wouldn't? My gosh.
Right?
It's interesting though, because I've seen interviews with Patrick Stewart who has mellowed so incredibly much in his and who he says he was back then at the time. He
Right.
looked down upon all of this and he wanted it to become something more. I mean, this is a theater Shakespearean actor, and for him to come in this, oh man, I mean, and the peers and people that he was involved in, I mean, it is so it he made it into something more. But that initial part, he always says that he kind of walked into it with a little bit of an air, and he
Yeah.
softened. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think I've heard him say in interviews before that, like, he looked at the first season and, it's almost like he's doing this for the paycheck and he doesn't expect it to go past this first initial season and that's it. Like
Right,
that'll be it. And he'll be able to go back and do what he loves doing.
right,
And then it wound up being this, what, 20-year commitment? Well, now 30, 40-year commitment
right.
with the latest in Picard series and all the movies, and he is as integral to Star Trek as Leonard Nimoy.
He really is. The other side too, I mean, I don't know about you, but this season as a whole is not my favorite season. I didn't really enjoy the continuity, or I didn't feel like there was great continuity with it. There are a few episodes that I really do like, but they're not necessarily it's more like setting the stage, like seeing Patrick Stewart and or sorry, seeing Jean-Luc Picard and Riker interact and their relationship was important. Tasha Yar's death, that was important. Just with the Wesley Crusher and Picard thing, that was important. But really, even you look at, say, any of the other characters, Worf, any of those, I don't feel like they really got stride until season two, in my opinion. The way it ended too was kind of like bizarre with this, not the last episode, but the second to last episode, where it has like the conspiracy It just felt like it
Uh-huh.
was out of nowhere. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's really weird conspiracy, and just so many holes in the whole thing with it. But aside from that, like it definitely did build character so that you could actually make better strides going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Except I'd go one further and say it really didn't pick up strides till season three.
Oh yeah,
Um, I it's funny. I look at their uniforms, right? In the first and second season, they've got a stripe on the black part of
right.
their top,
Yeah,
that matches the rest of a red stripe, a gold stripe, whatever it is. And in the third season, they lose that stripe.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so after that, like whenever I see like, all right, what uniforms are they wearing? We'll see what season this is. It's like, all right, this is where it starts getting really good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there are definitely standout moments in both first and second season. But like you said, I feel like it really hit their stride, especially when you start getting into the backstories and personal lives of the rest of the senior staff.
Right,
We don't really learn more about Worf in detail until we get to that third season.
right, right,
We learn, a little bit here and there in the second
right,
season, but
right.
it's not until everyone like really gels into their actual roles. you know Jordy isn't chief engineer until second season.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Worf
right.
isn't chief of security until second season.
Right.
So,
Because Tasha Yar was in charge of security, and then I guess he replaces her,
yeah,
or
yeah, he's
oh,
he's appointed to take her place when she dies.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know if they officially do that in the first season, in those last few episodes after she passes away, or if it's officially done like off camera,
Yeah,
and we're brought back. I know he doesn't change to the gold uniform until second season.
yeah.
Um, so let's talk about some of the key episodes in the first season. Of course, we want to talk about the pilot encounter at Farpoint. This is what introduces us to the crew.
And
It
Q.
introduces us to Q.
Wow.
John Delancey is amazing in this role. Has always been amazing in this role.
Yeah.
Just his arrogance and the way that he, lords his power over the Enterprise crew, and Picard in particular, is just so much fun. And he had to have had a ton of fun playing that character, just chewing up scenery everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and it the different personalities between the two of them. It's almost like Q is a child. You find that it becomes over time this teacher student, aspect really between Q and Picard, where Picard is really like the insightful, the one who can kind of break it down for Q as to why, things are done in a certain way. But it all starts with this. I've always I don't I'm very interested in knowing what you think about the tie from the very first episode to the very last episode of the show, which tie the whole thing together. Did you like that, or did you have a problem with that?
I thought it was great. I really thought that it was a great way to bring everything full circle. Of course, it was. I mean, at the time, gosh, I remember how sad I was
Right,
that
right.
it was ending.
Yeah,
And the fact that they title it "All Good Things," which
y-
the end of that phrase is
right,
"must come to an end."
right, right,
But the fact that they title it that's like a knife to the gut anyway.
right,
But to have it end was painful, but to watch and see them bring it back to Encounter at Farpoint, bring back all of those same characters that you had in the pilot. They brought back Tasha Yar. They
right,
brought back um, Chief O'Brien, who had moved on to Deep Space
right.
Nine by
This
this
is
point.
right.
It was so neat to see
Everybody together.
all of those changes and be reminded of, all right, this is what the show was 7 years ago.
Yeah,
So this is where it was at the beginning. This is where it is at the end, and this is where it could be in the future.
Yeah.
which was so fascinating. It was so interesting the way that they handled this. Um, I want to say a time travel story, but really there was no time travel
Right.
involved. It
Right.
was just a story that took place in three different settings
Right.
of time, and wound up all having to somehow work together to tie everything up.
Well, I
Yeah,
also
and
appreciated how it pretty much was, because you walk out of the episode feeling like that encounter at Farpoint, that trial is over, right? But
right,
this ties it to be like, oh no, this entire whole show has
yeah,
been has been still part of that first episode. Still, it's been an evaluation of justifying, mankind and who they are, right? And so it's pretty
trial
cool.
never ends.
Show never ends. That's right.
Such a great line from Q. Yeah, so another standout, of course, we already talked about Tasha Yar dying. The episode is Skin of Evil. Um, Shocking to kill off a main character. Like it's
Very
not
early.
like, you expect a big thing like that to happen maybe in a season finale,
Right.
because it's the end of the season, and so like contract disputes are happening.
Right.
I don't want to come back and do a second season. Kill me off. That's not what happened here. We're 4 episodes away from the end of the season, and
Right.
Tasha's just gone.
Which is
Bold move or
crazy.
big mistake? What do you think?
Well, so again, coming into this later where she was not in it, and then going back and watching it when there's reruns and then kind of getting acquainted. Like, it wasn't until I was an adult and watched them when I got the DVD set, right, and started watching them in order, like, that I started going, "Oh," like, you really walk it. I mean, you even have Data in her, little, right? It's just
Wink, wink,
like
wink.
her character is just getting entrenched. And so watching it later, I was like, "Oh gosh, what a shocker!" that would happen. You would have expected she would have stayed on. You know?
And then spoiler for those who aren't aware. Uh, she's brought back in several different very intriguing ways.
Yeah,
There's an episode where
the alternate.
you have an alternate timeline
Yeah,
and she
yeah,
doesn't belong there,
right.
and then winds up going back in time with the previous Enterprise,
Yeah,
and it's just so much happens to keep bringing the actress back, if not the character,
yeah,
because then she later plays her own daughter, which again just is mind-boggling
right.
when that happens.
I don't think it was a mistake though. I mean, I think sometimes you got to do stuff like that to keep it going. You get invested, with characters. But, I mean, there were other departures that I was happy with, like the doctor that Beverly Crusher replaces. The original one, she was fine, but nothing compared to what Beverly Crusher ended up being, and the relationship that had, right?
You know, Beverly was the original Doctor, and then in
Oh, no,
season
the other
two,
lady came around. That's right. And then
right?
Beverly came back. That's what it was.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. And it was a big scene. It was a big blow up behind the scenes with Gates McFadden, and basically she was fired after the first season. But they wrote her off. They wanted to keep Wesley on. They
Yeah,
wrote her off, saying that she went to Starfleet
that's
headquarters
right. That's
to
right.
to
That's
be
right.
head of medicine, or I think the head medical officer or something there. And then so they brought in Dr. Pulaski because they wanted somebody who was more like Dr. McCoy to be in that role, and that's
Right.
exactly what she was. She
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 really
filled those
was.
shoes.
But
Of
I
course, we'll
didn't
get to
enjoy
that
her
when we talk
character
about
as
season
much.
two.
Right, right, right.
But yeah, they brought back Beverly after season two because the audience did not connect with Pulaski.
I don't know if you remember me telling you this when my son Jensen and I went to that Richmond Comic Con, and we got to meet uh uh, sorry, Gates McFadden and Riker, uh number one.
Number one, yes,
But we got to
Jonathan
meet
Frakes.
Jonathan Frakes. So we got to meet Gates McFadden, and she is like a professor, and is in full academia, and she left acting and all that stuff too. She came back for Picard, but it's really cool because she talked with my son about education, history, and loving history and all that stuff. So it was cool. But I always liked her character, and I especially liked her and Picard's relationship. But specifically, man, the whole Wesley Crusher thing, I think because of our age, maybe because he's, I guess he's just a little older than us,
Yeah, slightly. Yeah.
just slightly. I mean, it's like, our age having that element in there, right? You remember that episode where he steps on the flowers and he has a death sentence because he
Oh,
steps on
yeah.
the flowers? That's
I
in
actually
season.
just watched that episode today. Like,
Gosh, that's
I had it on
crazy.
had my TV on Pluto TV where it's got like the 24-hour Star Trek channel,
Yeah, yeah.
and that was one of the episodes that played. I was like,
Oh,
that is a crazy episode. Like,
crazy.
because you think about that, it's like with the Prime Directive and everything, you're supposed to respect a culture's justice system.
Yeah,
How do you not step in and be like, hey, he's just a kid. He didn't know
yeah,
your laws.
yeah,
Uh, it's just like it was an accident. What are we supposed to do? Just send him over to be killed?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Crazy stuff.
all right, let's talk about the season finale, the neutral zone. This brought back the Romulans, and it was supposed to lead into the introduction of the Borg, but that got delayed due to a writer strike.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Uh, can you imagine how different the show might have been if the Borg had showed up in season one?
Yeah, that would have been different. No, I'm glad that that didn't happen, but I was glad to see the introduction of the Romulans because I think that one thing that this show was trying to do was not stick like Klingons had been, there's plenty of work that had been done on the Klingons, all that had happened in the movies with William Shatner. And so we're kind of without I mean, you got to introduce the Ferengis and all that, but you're kind of without like a uh bad guy, entity or race or whatever the case is, right? And so I thought it was cool. I think it's, you think about the Romulans, I mean, they are going to be for the rest of the show and even further adaptations going to be a force that you have to deal with. So I thought it was cool. Introduction of Borg early. I love how you got to set up how Borg was set up better to be able to get to Locutus. I think that had to be delayed for you to really have enough time to attach to Picard and have that happen.
Yeah, yeah. As it wound up happening, we get introduced to the Borg late in season two.
Yeah,
In Q's episode, he shows up and plays around with uh destiny, as it were. But one thing that they point out, and they do draw it back to this episode, the season finale, where the reason they're at the neutral zone, they're patrolling, is because there have been settlements where the uh, the entire civilization, the entire colony or whatever, has just been destroyed.
yeah,
Like and they mention almost like it's been scooped up and taken away,
yeah.
and um, and they wind up when in season two, again, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, when we get to season two, but they talk about how when they're passing by nearby systems, they notice that some of these civilizations, it's like what they saw at the neutral zone. And so they are able to tie this in and assume that it's the same thing.
I think
And
that was
then they
happening.
run into the Borg, and so it is. And so um, there's they don't get to mention the Borg, but it's like, all right, that's fine, but we set it up.
Yeah.
There's some kind of threat out there, and it's not the Romulans, because the Romulans are being threatened by these people too.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah,
so
that's
so
true.
great. So gosh, I love that where they have that face off there at the end, and over the view screens, and the one Romulan's just like, we're back, and that's it. Like like we're just announcing ourselves. We're here, and we're not going
I thought
anywhere.
I thought that was cool. I'm really glad that it ended with that episode and not the episode with that preceded it with them unearthing the conspiracy.
It's a
That would
weird
have been a
episode.
really, really bad way to end the series. So that was cool. Them saying we're back kind of was like, all right, season two it is. Let's go. Um, but as always with this show, I feel like there's a great balance of episodes. You remember X-Files and how X-Files would have one-off episodes, but then
Hmm.
you'd have episodes that contributed to the overall arc. And you have that with a lot of shows. Smallville worked the same way. You have these shows where it'd be like just one-off episodes. The cool thing about Star Trek, The Next Generation, is it would do that. You'd be progressing character development along the way. You'd have some major arc themes that would happen in certain episodes, but overall, it was one-off situations that would happen. And it was
Yeah.
fascinating the things that they would discover and see. And the situations. I mean, Picard getting and going using the holodeck, Moriarty, that you'd find or just being the Picard being the gumshoe or whatever. There's just so many ways that you could see a character's, development fleshed out in different scenarios. So I
And
love that.
I'm gonna say that's what I like about the Strange New Worlds series, is that
Me
it is
too.
so much like that. It's got that feel of a one and done. You watch an episode, you don't necessarily have to have seen the three or four before it. You
Right,
can just come into it and be like, oh, this is a really good episode. Now
right,
there are little things that carry over, sure, just like
right.
where you get these character moments and you
Yeah,
see how they're growing throughout the series. But for the most part, these episodes are really, they just tell one story in 60 minutes, and that's it. And that's all you need. I love that. I love it. And we
me
don't
too.
get that very much these days because we're so into the long form
Progression.
storytelling
Yeah,
you need these huge season long arcs of
right,
what's going on, or multiple season long arcs,
right,
and it's not just that you're watching for 8 episodes that's coming out on Netflix today and you got to
right,
binge all those. You
right.
got to wait 2 years for the next season to come out so that you can find out what happens next.
Yeah,
It's I you know I we don't have it. And I complain about this with comic books too, right? Like back in the day, you'd get a comic book and you'd get like 5 or 6 stories
yeah,
that they start and finish
right,
in the same issue. But
right,
now you can't get a full story unless you buy 6 issues
right,
back to back to back.
right.
And it's
That's
like
true.
that's the only way you get a full story. That why can't writers tell a short story anymore?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I liked about Star Trek. It's like you're saying, like you really could walk into it, but it would always kind of start off with you'd see the ship in space somewhere, and then it'd show one of those hallways, and people are just walking back and forth like it's a new day, right?
Right.
And then you're on the bridge, and it's just like, it was you could jump into it, and really, I think that's one of the things that helped me, having been one that kind of picked it up when I'm like, I don't know, 11, something like that. I'm just watching the show on TV. I don't have to know what's going on, right?
Right.
I love the character. I just want to see what the character's going to do, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Although I
All
will say
right. No, go
Riker,
ahead.
Riker, the beard is required. The beard is required. Jonathan Frakes, you just look so much better with the beard. Thank you so much for putting it on and keeping
It's
it
true.
on for the rest of your life because you should always do that.
I don't know. He does lose it in Insurrection.
That's right. And I'm just like, dude, that's maybe why Insurrection wasn't as good. The I was jaded because of the beardless Riker.
Beardless Riker, gross. All right, let's
Like a
shift gears
shaved
into
cat.
our pop culture pulse. Landon, have you heard that there's another Star Trek series in development?
I have not heard that. Tell me more.
This one is Starfleet Academy.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure if I've read what I've read correctly, it's supposed to take place after Discovery.
oh,
So it's in that far-flung future
yeah,
of Star Trek that we know, where Discovery was taking place. I can't remember what century that is. It's way out there. But I think it's supposed to follow the character of Tilly because she has
oh,
become a
yeah,
professor at Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna follow her and several other. I think they've said that I cannot remember her character's name. Tig Notaro is coming back to play her same character that she was, the engineer on Discovery.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds like she's going to take on a teaching position at the academy.
Is she the short one with the short hair?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like it.
Um, yeah, she got her start as a comedian.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, she's her stand up is pretty funny. Um, I can't remember who else they said is going to be making a comeback. I think the Admiral, the actor who was in The Mummy. I can't
Oh,
remember his
yeah.
name.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do know I think he's gonna be making a comeback. I don't know if he's gonna be a regular or if he's just gonna show up every now and then.
Are you talking about
Um,
Odette Fair?
yes, that's him.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what do you
Yeah.
think? Are we reaching peak Trek, or have we already reached peak Trek? Is there always room for more Star Trek? What do you think?
When you said that, it's with coming off of the heels of Discovery, I'm like, "Meh." I was feeling fatigue with Discovery, and then Strange New Worlds came out.
Right.
And then you go, "What?" So I don't know. I feel like if much like many things, you have to have your find your identity, for your show, what you're trying to accomplish, the feel and vibe.
Yeah.
Does Star Trek have its does Star Wars, for that matter, have a good understanding of its vibe? It's the same question. Should you introduce a new Star Trek movie? Should you introduce a new Star Wars movie? It's like, do you know what you're trying to accomplish? Other than just trying to make money, So,
Right.
I mean, I I don't know. I walk into it a little skeptical of it. They still haven't made a very good Star Trek video game ever. Um, and that to me is like, and there's just some things that are just missing, that need to happen. So I don't know. What are you? Are you? What are you? What? Where are you? Where do you land on that?
For this one, for Starfleet Academy, it depends on the tone of the series, right? Because I'm like you, coming out of Discovery, if it's spinning out of Discovery, I'm not sure how I feel about it. But then again, Strange New Worlds spun directly out of Discovery, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying I didn't like Discovery. I did. I thought it was fine. A little heavy-handed in a lot of places, but it was a heavy show. It was very, very, very season arc driven and very dramatic.
Yeah.
And I will say I really did. I did like the character of Michael Burnham. I didn't like her at first. She grew on me.
Yeah.
Um, as did a lot of the crew from Discovery. But for the most part, like Discovery is one of those. I watched it to the end because I was committed, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't because I was, enamored with the show.
Right.
I watched it to the end because I started it and I was going to finish it. Same
Yeah.
way with How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
But like this Starfleet Academy thing, I feel like it's got the potential to be really good because they've talked about doing a Starfleet Academy series for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Like they talked about that when even before Star Trek 6 came out, they talked about, hey, let's take it back. Let's not do another one with the old cast. Let's have it take place in the academy and have a young how does Kirk meet Spock and Bones, right? In the
Right.
academy. Um and so, they've
But it's
they've had
also
this.
ground we haven't walked before. I mean, to be in an academy setting, you got a little bit of the academy vibe from Star Trek with Chris Pine. You had a little bit of that, very
Right.
brief. But to have a show that kind of goes through, you're right. It hasn't been done, and I would be interested in watching something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and just the culture of the learning.
Right.
Yeah,
But
it's
again, my
tough.
hope is that it
Go for it.
wouldn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I also don't want a Saved by the Bell college years kind of
Right.
situation either. I want something that's going to be compelling in a way that keeps me interested in watching it week after week,
Right.
but don't force me to uh be on this journey of you know, asking these questions that never have answers, only to have more questions each episode. I just I just want to enjoy a show. I
Yeah,
just want to be
enjoy a show.
entertained.
Well, I think that's fair. And it's okay to have a Jack Quaid character, in the show that would keep things light and funny, just so long as the whole thing isn't as slapstick as Lower Decks, but isn't so
That's what Lower
serious.
Decks is there for, you
Yeah,
know?
that's what it's there for. But you can like have some serious elements, like we're talking about, even with Next Generation, where it have like the day to day, but then there's like an overarch thing that happens, that keeps you going to the next season. So yeah, I would I'm interested. Sure.
Sign me up. All right, and for our recommendation corner, I am sticking with the Star Trek theme, and still going to recommend Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks like we have in the past. These are still on Paramount Plus. If you haven't checked them out, you're missing out. Strange New Worlds really does capture that classic Trek feel. Um, the guy playing, you got Anson Mount playing Christopher Pike, fantastic job. Rebecca Romaine plays number one. She's great. I'm in love with Nurse Chapel. I could marry her. I think she's
She
fantastic.
is. She's a great
Um,
actress. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. Who's
and
the doctor guy that plays her boss? Because that guy, I think's an awesome actor. I like him a lot.
he is an incredible actor. And gosh, the what he has brought to the show, not just like the things you have found out about his character between the first season and the second season. Um,
Especially his with that one where it's got the guy that's
the
responsible for the death. Well,
the Klingon,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And man,
So they tie back into the Klingon War and his role in the Klingon, this our our doctor, his role in the Klingon War, and it is, I tell you what, you want some compelling television, go watch that episode.
Jess Bush is your girl that you're hoping will someday consider you.
I don't think she would.
Okay,
Look at
his
me.
name is Babs Alusamoken. Alusamoken. Dr. Mbenga. Yeah, he's great. He's great. So great.
But yeah, definitely check out Strange New Worlds. Check out Lower Decks. If you are a fan of the like the just the entire franchise, and you're willing to watch a show that not only loves the franchise but is willing to make fun of it a little bit at the same time.
So good.
Very tongue in cheek. Landon, you got any recommendations this
No, I
episode?
think I'm going to stick with yours, man, because I think that absolutely echoes my feelings. That is absolutely something anyone and everyone should watch.
All right. Folks, that does it for our show today. Next time, we'll be discussing something off of the wheel.
Let's do it. Wheel me up.
All right. I didn't replace anything on here for Barbie. What should go on here in place
Oh,
of Barbie?
um, we should put Beetlejuice on there.
BB BJ squared.
And then you
How's
should
that?
do TNG 2 for that one. Season
Yeah,
2.
I'll just leave Star Trek on there.
Here we go.
Wheel of
Wheel me.
Morality. Turn, turn, turn. Tell us, can you see it?
I can see it.
All right. Where's it gonna land?
Oh, and the question mark.
In the question mark. That's another quiz episode. Do you want to quiz
Love
me
it.
this time?
It's my turn to quiz you.
All right. And then following that, we will do
Evolution of streaming.
evolution of streaming. Excellent. So that means we'll be talking about Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO Max, Peacock, Paramount Plus, Apple TV. Man, they might as well just keep cable. Bring cable back. But
And
yeah,
yet,
that's what we'll be hitting on, guys. So if you are watching this, you've got ideas for what you want to see on that wheel, let us know. Throw something in the comments, so we'll throw that on the wheel, and we'll add that to our list of possibilities of things that we'll talk about. Um, all right. So Landon, you're gonna put together a quiz for me for next time, and then following that, we'll talk about the evolution of streaming services. All right, that's
Prepare yourself.
all kinds of fun. All right, so until next time, may the force be. Oh wait, no, wrong franchise. Live long and prosper, each and every one of you. Landon, anything final to throw in?
Have a great week.
Sounds good. Always have a great whatever it is, wherever you are.
All right, bye-bye.